When I was an apprentice almost 30 years ago, everybody told me that the ball starts in the direction in which the club head was moving at impact and that the ball curves in the direction the face was pointing at. Some even claimed that the ball would land exactly at the spot where the face was pointing at. Let's say, for instance, we have a drive and the path is angled 10 degrees to the left and the face is pointing 2.5 degrees to the right. According to the pros of the 80s, the ball would now start 10 degrees to the left, which would be 40 yards left of the target if the drive is 230 yards long. And depending on the theory, the ball would curve more or less to the right. And according to the ones who stated that the ball is going to land exactly where the face is pointing at, the ball would land 10 yards right of the target. And judging from what we know today, the ball would actually start pretty close towards the target and it would curve extremely to the right since the face is 12.5 degrees open relative to the swing path, and you probably wouldn't even bother to look for this ball. Now the question is, how would the veterans back in the days try to fix the slice and how would today's pros go about it? In the 80s, a slice was caused by an open club face. The ball, however, in this example would start straight, so the pros then would have assumed that the path was not the problem. The fact that the student would have appeared to swing quite a bit to the left might have left them a little irritated, but since just a handful of pros were using video cameras at the time, not many of them would have been really sure whether the club was traveling in the right direction or not. So in result, they would have asked the student to close the club face by either strengthening the grip or by flipping the hands over. And both would have resulted in a pull slice or a pull hook, depending on how much stronger the grip was or how much the student flipped his hands over. Actually, you don't really roll or flip your hands, since the only thing you can do with your wrists is you can cup them or bow them, and you can do ulnar deviation or radial deviation, which is this kind of movement. And this is a function of the forearms, and your upper arm can help a little bit, but it's actually not a flipping of the hands. After the first correction, the now pulling balls would have told the pro of the 80s that the swing path was way off, and he would have probably asked the student to come into the ball more from the inside. If in the first place his grip was the correction to close the club face, a draw would have been possible in this case. However, if the first correction was forearm rotation, the golfer was now stuck in a dilemma, because he had to delay his forearm rotation to be able to deliver the club head from the inside, but this again would leave the club face open, or if he tried to close the club face, he wouldn't have been able to attack the ball from the inside. So this golfer would have probably been condemned to alternating push slices and pull hooks, depending on how much forearm rotation he applied. And the comment of John Jacobs would have probably been, "You need a lot of golf balls for this kind of swing." Now let's have a look at how today's pros would approach the problem, especially the ones under the influence of TrackMan systems. In many YouTube videos, you are told that the ball starts now in the direction the face is pointing at, and that the path is responsible for the curvature of the ball. So quite the opposite of what we've been told in the 80s. Since the ball in this example starts straight, the path needs to be fixed, allegedly, and the student should therefore swing more to the right. But unfortunately, path and face have a reciprocal effect on each other. If you change one, you probably change the other. And let's just say, for the sake of the argument, that it would be possible to change the swing path without changing the club face. But if you, in this example, perfect the path, the ball will still push slice because the face is 2.5 degrees open. And yes, I know that if you would be able to tell the student or to make the student swing even more to the right than the face is pointing to the right, so let's say 4 degrees to the right, you would be able to see a draw. But the problem is that along every step he would produce push slices, which in effect make it even harder to swing further to the right. For example, if he would be able to swing not 10 degrees to the left, but in his first try he's able to swing only 5 degrees to the left, the face is unchanged, would be unchanged, and he would have a 7.5 degrees open face relative to the path, and he would still produce an extreme push slice to the right. Now you would have to tell him, okay, try even more swinging to the right, and I'm pretty sure that's a tough job. Besides, I do not believe that changing the swing path wouldn't affect the club face. And if the altered swing path only opens the club face a fraction more, the golfer will never be able to achieve a draw. So how would I attempt to fix this slice? First of all, I do agree that it is necessary to work on your swing path if the ball starts to the left, and I also agree that it's necessary to work on the swing path if the ball starts straight and curves to the right just a little bit. Yet, if the ball curves a good deal, I would always change the path and close the face. And in all the other cases, which are moderate slices, I'd still start with the path, but not without telling the student that we have to adjust the club face as soon as he's got the path figured out. If I see, for example, the first swing in which the student is coming from the inside and the ball is not coming back enough or not at all, I would fix the face. But my difference would be I wouldn't do it or wouldn't try it with the correction of forearm rotation. For me, forearm rotation is usually the last resort of a teacher if he can't identify any other slice factors apart from a weak grip or a cupped left wrist at the top. But actually there are many more ways to open up the club face, and sadly they are usually not identified as such. But that would be a topic for another video. So both the pros of the 80s and the ones from today were partially right, but to claim that the ball starts in the direction in which the club head is moving is neither correct, nor is it correct to say it would start where the face is pointing. It actually starts in the direction wedged in between those two vectors, the one pointing to the left and the other pointing to the right. And in this case, it resulted in a ball which was starting straight. The ratio is 1:3 in the case of an iron and 1:4 in the case of a driver. Plus, it is neither correct to claim that only the club face is responsible for the curvature of the ball, nor is it correct to state that the path is. You can produce a slice with the club face pointing left of the target at impact, and you can produce a slice with a swing path from in to out. The truth is that it is a combination of the two which determines the starting direction and the turning direction of the ball. And by the way, in this example, I always assume that the ball is struck with a sweet spot, because if it's not, it will complicate things a lot more. I think that the pros of the 80s really believed in their assessment, and that the pros of today are more aware of how complicated it really is, though they are obviously or apparently aiming to simplify the things. But as Homer Kelly already stated in his golfing machine, if you try to make things simpler than they actually are, you complicate matters and achieve just the opposite of your goal. So I hope I was able to clarify a few things, and I'm pretty sure that in 20 years we will recognize even more variables that we are neglecting today. And maybe the link in the description might point you in the right direction.